Hello, folks. I am Rebecca Adams, and you're watching Free to Soar. And I have Becky Vermeer with me. Let's see if we can hear you this time.
Hello.
Yeah, it kind of fades in and out. That's
Why
so
does it
weird.
fade out when I say that? Let me try this. Hello.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can hear that.
It's the high tones. Something about the high tones. I don't know.
I think it's that certain pitch you hit, and then your mic doesn't like it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, my dad always tells me that I talk in a pitch that he can't hear.
Oh, wow. Isn't that convenient?
That's what I say. How come you can hear everybody else, but when I talk, you can't hear me talking?
That's really convenient. I like
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I have
apparently my microphone agrees with my dad.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. I have grandsons that have that selective hearing too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we have two really special guests with us tonight. We have Sunny and Shelly that are with us. So welcome. We appreciate y'all coming on here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. We're glad to be here.
Absolutely. And this is just honestly just a really relaxed conversation that happens to be in front of a camera. So if you can do that, ignore the camera, forget that it's there. And I think once we get into the conversation, I think it'll help. So Becky, you have some really good questions. Do you want to give a better introduction to these ladies than I can?
I will, but first I want to ask you what you got hanging off your ears. What is that going on tonight?
Oh, well, I'm wearing my tie-dye shirt. So, I couldn't go with just one color of earrings. So I got, of course, I'm like you. I have 3 piercings on the right ear, 2 on the left. So yeah, it's a little loud in the hearing aids. Let me tell you, I almost want to turn them down.
Got some background noise tonight, do you?
Little bit of background noise. Yes, I do. What do you have going on there on your desk?
I have all kinds of things going on my desk.
You always
There's
do that.
one specific thing that I might show you is I have a super cool pair of socks that I thought I'd share with you tonight.
Yes, please.
You'll notice that I'm in a different room than I typically record in.
Yeah, you're not in your mansion.
No, I'm in the servants' chambers.
Oh, is that what it is?
Actually, this is the game room / office. So you see my frogs hanging up here that my grandson really likes, and I do too. But over here, you notice that cool Miss Pac-Man game.
Oh.
So as a kid that grew up in the 80s, I played a lot of Pac-Man. So I was thinking about the 80s and I was thinking about Pac-Man. And so tonight what we have is my MTV hamburger socks.
Cool.
I
Yeah.
love
So I don't know. Here, let me stick my foot in there. Do you see the MTV? Well, it's upside down. Do you see my MTV going on?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah. So Pac-Man and MTV, you can't get any better than that.
Well, and Snoopy, come on, don't ignore the t-shirt.
Oh yeah, Snoopy says nope, not today, which seemed very appropriate for a Monday. So
very much so.
I
need one of those shirts. Well,
right now. Don't spoil the surprise.
Sorry.
Can you tell us how you know these two ladies?
I will. So you and I have talked about the fact that October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we had kind of contemplated what can we do to highlight Domestic Violence Awareness Month? What can we do to make it special? And so for me, the best way that I could think of to make it special was to bring some of my staff here with me tonight. So these two wonderful people work for me, which is my blessing, maybe not theirs. So to my immediate right, I have our shelter director, Sunny Roberts. She's been working at the Crisis Center for 15, almost 16.
16th year.
Yeah. Wow, Sunny, you need a medal or something.
Yeah, for sure. So the interesting fact about Sunny is she has filled almost every job description, I guess I could say, every role at the Crisis Center. She started as the domestic violence victim advocate. She was moved into being the first sexual violence victim advocate.
Oh, wow.
Went from that to having a short interim term as our court advocate. And then she moved, excuse me, and then she moved into the role of executive, no, I'm the executive director. She moved into the role of shelter director.
Get that straight now,
so-
Becky.
Yeah, so she's filled the role of executive director. We can't remember if it's 4 or 5 years, but we'll call it 5. Just let's be generous and call it 5.
Sunny,
So then, go ahead.
Sunny, do you agree with all of that she just said?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just checking on Becky there.
And so then below us, we're sitting on Shelly's head. Shelly is currently our court advocate, but she began working at the crisis center as a domestic violence victim advocate. Let me step back. She first did an internship for us at the crisis center for, was that your last semester of college, I think, Shelly?
Yeah, for my
Yeah.
degree in social work.
Yeah. So as luck or fate, or you call it what you want to call it, would have it, as she finished her internship, we had a position open for a victim advocate job, which I, without hesitation, offered to Shelly, and she took that. And so she was a domestic violence victim advocate for a couple years. She took a short hiatus, see if the grass was greener on the other side. Then she came back and she's been working for us now for the last 4.5 years, primarily as a domestic violence victim advocate, but sometime around February? No.
No, it was this summer. I think it was
Yeah.
July or August.
Yeah, that's right. July or August, she took over as our full-time court advocate. So now she gets to hang out at the courthouse and do all those fun things.
It is fun.
I'm glad you think it's fun. When I was in court there, excuse me, it was not fun. I was glad that there was a court advocate to be there with me.
Yeah. I do enjoy that part. I like, 'cause I know it's a scary thing and there's so many unknowns. And so I like being there to be able to just be support or to share what small knowledge I have so far of court advocacy, but just let them know that it's going to be all right. They have someone on their side.
It's huge
Mm-hmm.
because I was beyond terrified. Yeah.
So I think maybe before we dive too far into the conversation, I think we should ask each of these ladies, what is their job title and what does that entail? So we've given their titles, but we haven't really gotten a whole lot into the ins and outs of what the job is. So tell us what your job is and what does that mean?
So I'm the shelter director, and there's a lot that goes into that, but there's staff oversight. So I oversee generally most of the staff at the crisis center, make sure that they have their needs met, meet with them on a biweekly basis. And then I take care of any grievances with staff, and I take care of grievances with our residents if they have those. Hiring and the training process is also a big part of my job. So that takes up a lot of time, just getting people ready for the job itself and ready to be part of our team.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she supervises primarily most of the direct service staff. So I think I supervise Shelly, I supervise Sunny, and I supervise Leah, who has been on our program before.
Mhm.
So she supervises the other 7 people that are on our staff,
Okay.
which supervising people is a full-time job.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Wow.
What about you, Shelly? What's your job?
Well, I'm still pretty new at it, but I'm the court advocate. And so I primarily help our residents, but also non-residents or people in the community with if they're filling out an ex parte, an order of protection, going to court with them for anything court related, helping somebody fill out papers for a divorce, just kind of helping them navigate the legal system and hooking them up with resources within that system. And then also just, helping at the shelter. I try to go to court every morning throughout the week. And then in the afternoon, I'm at the shelter helping out there with whatever I can help out with. And usually it's more meeting with residents in the afternoon with their court related questions.
I would think that would be a full-time job. I mean, just meeting with the excuse me, with the residents, with their questions.
Mhm.
How much time do you think a week you spend doing that?
A meeting with residents
Yeah,
or
regarding
just
the legal
going to
issue.
court? Probably 25 to 30 hours. I mean, it's
Mhm.
primarily what I do. It just kind of depends. We have 2 new domestic violence victim advocates, and I was the only one that was still there with experience. So I have been helping them acclimate to those jobs and those roles. And so I've been doing a lot of that as well.
Shelly,
When
tell
they
us a little bit about what a victim advocate does. We keep throwing that word around, but maybe not everybody understands what that entails.
Okay. So as a victim advocate, you carry a caseload. So when you come to the shelter, you're assigned an advocate, and then they meet with you, they do an intake. They see where your needs are, and we try to address the most current dire needs right in the beginning. And then they can fill out a goal and action plan, and we can help them with the goals that they want to try to accomplish or at least get going on while they're at the shelter. And they stay at the shelter for 30 to 90 days. So in that time, they meet with you every week, and you help them with whatever it is that they primarily need. There's some things that are pretty much across the board that everybody needs. Usually it's regaining items of identity, whether it's their driver's license or birth certificate or social security card, that sort of thing. Usually they need to redo their food stamps application or Medicaid application because they were not able to either take that with them, or their household has changed so that they can apply for that. Sometimes if they are working or want to work, we help them look for a job and provide transportation possibly. It's pretty much, and there's also, sorry.
You're fine. Just looks like Batman joined you, that's all.
I know.
Answer the bat signal. That's what advocates do.
Right, there you
I
go.
have an available lap, so he has to sit on me. That's what it is. He's like, oh, since you're comfortable and ready there. So, and they're also processing what they've been through. And so it's meeting with them and helping them understand what they've been through, and that they're not going crazy, and that they're not alone, and trying to help them understand what it is that they went through. I also lead support groups, weekly support groups, and yeah, I do cottage checks. Just, it's pretty much being there to take care of whatever is going on with them that day and help them accomplish their goals while they're in shelter.
And I know
And
when
I wrap that up in a nutshell version is what I typically say, that it's the role of our domestic violence, or all of our advocates, to cater to the needs of the residents of our shelter. And so
Yeah.
we may have 7 people in shelter at this moment who have 7 unique set of needs. They all came with a commonality. They were a victim of domestic or sexual violence, but those sets of needs can run the gamut of everything. Like Shelly said, getting replaced, IDs replaced, to transportation, to fill in the gaps, medical care, everything. And so really it's kind of a end all be all, one-stop shop when people come at the crisis center.
and I think I
And
was
there's always something new or different. Like, it's never all the same. And so you're constantly researching, and that's why they'll come to me and be like, I haven't encountered this situation before, and I can share what experience I have, and it's just more brains to pick or whatever. But yeah, sometimes there's really unusual things where you're like, this is a first.
okay. And then what do you do in those situations where you encounter something you haven't dealt with before?
Well, I usually talk to Sunny or Becky about it because they've been doing it longer. And if they don't know, they'll usually try to point me in the right direction. Like, I had someone who's a victim of abuse I met at court, but she's an immigrant, and she realized that her husband was abusive after she married him, but she's here on a visa, a marriage visa. So the concern was making sure that she was still protected, and so I was pointed in the direction of the coalition to talk to somebody there to make sure that her rights would be protected as well.
Yeah. Wow. You said one thing when
And
you were, what's that? I thought somebody
oh, and
said,
sometimes I just have to Google it.
I'll bet you do.
Yeah.
Which I would understand that. You said something when you were talking about what you do when you sit down with someone when they first come into the shelter, and you said you look at their needs and you know, the direction, try to help guide them in the right direction of where they want to go. I would think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I would think that your educational background would have helped you in that one, because on all those other issues, I've seen y'all handle those. And Becky, your court advocates, I mean, your advocates are wonderful and they really know their stuff. But that's one that I don't think I would really know how to do. Do you have any tips you can tell us on how you do that? Or
Like finding out their needs.
yeah, and just kind of getting an idea of what you can help them with to steer them in the right direction.
I kind of, as I'm listening to them share their story, I'll pick up on little things that they happen to mention that maybe they're not thinking that it's, you know, it's just part of their story, but they're not seeing that that's something that needs to be corrected to avoid another pitfall or something, you know, to help the sailing be a little bit smoother. And so I'll just kind of take mental note of that, and then ask them after they're done sharing their story, you know, if since they mentioned whatever, do they need help with this, and let them know, because sometimes they don't necessarily know that there is help for whatever the issue is, or they're just coming out of a traumatic situation and they're not necessarily thinking through everything that they need to do to get back on track or to protect themselves, like closing accounts or getting the titles of things that are in their names, or, you know, different, whatever it is. I mean, it's a lot of different things. And part of that, I mean, I guess in education helped as far as being able to listen, knowing how to listen, being an active listener. But a lot of it was just experience working at the crisis center and just learning every time you have a resident, you know, you learn something more about how to help someone else and to do a better job. So that helps just to do a better job the next time. And then to share that knowledge too with coworkers or whatever. So
That's really interesting to me. Becky or Sunny, do you want to add to answer what I asked her?
I think you were talking about education, and I think education definitely helps in a way that it gives you some background in ethics and empathy. But a lot of it is really just on the job, like Shelly said. You work with someone, and then the next time you work with someone, if they have a similar issue or a similar thing going on, then you can say, oh, aha, I've done this before with someone else. And so that helps you to feel more confident and more secure in helping our residents.
Makes sense. Becky, you want to add to that?
I think they covered it.
Yeah.
Are they good?
Yeah, that's just really impressive. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask these two if we can. I'd like to take a little walk down memory lane for a second. And so why I say it's a little walk down memory lane is I would like to ask both of you, why did you apply for a job initially at the crisis center? What was the draw? And then what educational background, since we brought up education, what educational background did the two of you bring to the job?
You want to go first, Shelly, or you want me to go?
sure, you can go first.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, as you know, I actually didn't even know that there was a shelter where it's at until my husband told me, because at the time we owned a cab company, and I guess he picked up residents a lot. Because I was looking for a place locally to do my practicum, And he's like, well, what about at the domestic violence shelter? I'm like, what domestic violence shelter? I mean, we were fairly new to the area because we moved there in 2011 and it was 2014 when I started my practicum. So I got a hold of Becky and she was okay with that. And Sunny was my supervisor because of her degree. And so I started doing that, and I had a whole list of goals I had to do and things I needed to do. And while I was there, and I had to quit my job because they're like, you can't work while you're doing a practicum because it's like you have to get, I think, 350 hours or something in a semester. And it was quite a few hours. And so I'm like, well, this is going to be great. I'm going to be so broke while I'm doing this. But while I was there that March, one of the advocates was leaving. And so I was offered the job while I was in my practicum. And even though Becky's like, you should apply, I'm like, I don't think I can work where I'm doing my practicum. I don't think it's allowed. And she kept pushing it. And finally I asked and they're like, oh, sure. I'm like, okay. So it was actually a real blessing for me. So I got really hands-on. Really hands-on experience.
So what is your degree in, Shelly?
It's in social work. It's a Bachelor of Social Work. And I liked that degree. I wanted to get that degree because I felt like I was a helping degree. And I liked the fact that it covered so many different aspects. So if there was something that I didn't like I got into and I was like, oh, this isn't for me, I could move on to something else fairly easily. Yeah. And domestic violence wasn't really on my radar. I was looking more at being a hospital social worker or a hospice social worker. And so I wasn't really considering it. But once I started doing it, I don't know if this is part of the question. I forgot the first part of the question. Do you want me to tell you why I like it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I really liked what I like about it is it's empowering women because it's primarily women are the victims. And I've always had a heart for that. Because I feel like women just kind of get a bad rap. Sorry, I look like the crazy cat lady, but I'm actually married to a crazy cat man. So it's not me personally, it's my husband. But they still like me because animals do. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the main reason why I have gone back and stayed, because I, like Becky said earlier, I kind of left for a little hiatus, but I came back and really the thought of going to any other aspect just doesn't seem as fulfilling. Wow. For me personally.
What I usually tell people when you talk about social work and the field that we're in, sometimes it takes a minute to find the niche that fits. And my backstory is I thought when I went to college that I was going to work with Christian counseling or people that were in crisis pregnancy situations. Well, my path took me to working with kids with behavioral problems. Not for me. I went from that into substance abuse, not for me. And then I found the niche that fit. And so that's the interesting thing about social services. Like Shelly said, there are so many different things that you can do in that realm. And it can be challenging at times to find what is the right place for me in this process. And so when you find it, it feels a little bit like going home, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So what's your backstory?
My backstory, so I have a bachelor in social work with a minor in speech communications, which when I first started into speech classes, I thought, this is horrible. I'm going to quit college. I'm never going to go back. And then I ended up minoring in it. So part of what I do is I get to do some public speaking, which I really enjoy. And then I started out wanting to do substance abuse counseling, hated it. Went from that to long-term care social work. My grandmother was in a nursing home, and so it was a natural fit for me to go there where I knew she was going to be taken care of. After 3.5 years of that, I burnt myself out. I was there multiple hours a day, all day, sometimes into the night. It was not what I wanted to do. So I found myself quitting that job with no leads, nowhere to go, didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I found 2 jobs. One was overnight dispatch, which scared the tar out of me. And the other one was working at the crisis center. And so I applied at the crisis center. Part of the reason I wanted to apply at the crisis center is because I have a personal history with sexual violence. And so it really naturally just drew me to the place. But when I interviewed with Becky, I was like, this is it. She just completely sold me on the job. I thought, this is perfect for me. And she'll tell you, if I don't tell you, she's going to tell you that I drove her crazy.
She harassed me incessantly.
I did. I harassed her incessantly, even on her vacation,
That's right.
for the job, and just couldn't be happier. I mean, it's home to me. It's the perfect place. I love what I do. I love every position that I've held. It's been amazing. I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be, for sure.
And I really confirm that you ladies are doing a great job, because Sunny, you came after I had left the shelter, but I was going back, to take donations. And then I was bringing teddy bears, stuffed animals to the ladies. And I just enjoyed talking to you so much. And it was so obvious that you were very comfortable there and that you belonged. Excuse me. Yeah, a lot of issues with the allergies in the area, but that you literally belonged there. You were,
I truly feel that. Yeah.
and it came across very much so. And Shelly, when I was there the night that we recorded, and we did the support group, sorry, it left me there for a minute. I was just really impressed with just the way you naturally just dealt with the ladies and conversed and answered questions and piped up and gave input here and there. And it was just like, you fit, you fit here. It was,
And I will,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I will tell you that when people do find the niche that fits, there's something about when I hear people answer questions, like residents ask questions or they have concerns or whatever else, when I hear people say things and I think to myself, well, that's what I would have said. That you're like-minded, that somebody is there, they're there for the right reasons. I talk about it feeling like home, but then we spend as much time at our job as we do with our families. We sometimes get that strong connection of, here's a family feel, where I always say we're way too intimately involved in each other's lives because we're all women. So what do women do? We talk about things, but we're also each other's network of support or their sounding board. Today's been a really tough day with this thing. We feel comfortable when you build those relationships with each other. You feel comfortable even being able to share those things. And so not only do we advocate all day, every day for the residents at our shelter, we honestly advocate all day, every day for each other too. And so it does create one of those kind of environments where we grow that strong team. And there have been times over the years, in my experience, where we've had more cohesive teams than others. But when you have some longevity like I have with these two ladies here, it shows. Like, there's a level of trust, there's a level of understanding that so many other jobs, you don't get that. It just doesn't feel like that.
I agree.
Right. I agree with that because, and that was one of the draws for me to come back after being gone for a while, is because I knew, Becky and Sunny were still there. And I think you guys were the only two original ones that I originally worked with. But, it's that knowing that they're going to be the same. They're going to be open and accommodating and honest and easy to work with, all those things. And what's going on in my personal life, but I couldn't have been able to do what I need to do for my family working anywhere else. Nobody would have put up with me and my stuff. So I'm eternally grateful.
I'm sure you are.
Really.
But I always tell my employees, I hire people with the notion that it's your job to accommodate the residents of our shelter.
Mhm.
What that means is we're all about support and empowering our residents. And so when I was the only supervisor, my attitude was, if I'm not all about supporting and empowering my employees, then I'm a hypocrite if I'm
Mhm.
expecting them to do it. And so when Sunny came along behind me and took over the role as shelter director, that's one of the first things I told her. It's our job to accommodate our employees so they feel supported and advocated for and empowered in the same way that we're hoping that they go and do that with the residents. And so we do have that trickle down effect of, we won't ask somebody to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves.
Mm.
Sometimes we prove it.
Like trashing the house next door earlier this
That's right. I got to do a bunch of demolition last week. It was fantastic.
He was out there with the sledgehammer going to town.
Nice.
It was Wonder Woman for real.
I love it.
It was fun.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
So Leah was all charged up about using the sledgehammer. Did she get to do that?
I did way more sledgehammering than she did.
Okay.
In fact, at one point she had to go buy me a sledgehammer because the person that was letting me use theirs left, and I was like, I can't tear anything up now? That's not okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if she were here, would she say that you did or she did more sledgehammering? Which would Leah
She
say?
would say it was me.
She
without
would
a doubt.
agree. It was Becky. Leah burned more things probably. She would really like enjoyed the burning part.
She was burning the stuff that I was tearing out.
Mhm. Becky was like, leave this fence alone. I am the only one tearing it out. And she did. I was watching and babysitting Teddy.
Yes.
Thank you
Keeping
so
an eye on the fire.
Right. So it takes a whole team to do things like that. Everybody had their role.
Yeah.
But I want y'all to talk a little bit about, now that we've kind of answered how you got to where you are, talk a little bit about what keeps you there. Why do you keep working at a domestic violence shelter is not easy.
Mm-mm.
We hear and see horrible things. Why do y'all keep coming back day after day?
I think for me, it's home, like I said before, but there's just so much to do, and it feels like the work is never done. And it feels like a little bit of, I need to go back and I need to keep doing what I'm doing. But again, for me, with my history, it's healing to me. It's very healing and very comforting to know that other people are going to get to a place where I've gotten in my life. And so if I can just help be a small step in someone's really big journey, I don't want to stop doing that. I don't want to leave an organization that is all about support and empowerment. So Becky's right. We really do take care of not only our employees, but we take care of our residents constantly, day in and day out. And I just really can't imagine going anywhere else. I know Becky says we don't make our fame and fortune, but it is a noble cause. And I truly believe that with all my heart. I think that we do amazing, amazing work. We're always there. We have an excellent team. We're like a family. So you spend more time at work than you generally do with your family sometimes, but we go to work and we have a family there, and it's worth it. It's just completely worth all the time and effort that it takes.
Talk a little bit about, before we have Shelly answer that question, talk a little bit about how, if you will, when the funding came through for the sexual violence victim advocacy position, how you were able to incorporate your own personal journey into what you did with that. One being what you did in the school systems, and then two, when you created the Shattered to Stained Glass. Will you talk about those for a minute?
Yeah. So when I took over as a sexual violence victim advocate, we had been providing services to sexual violence victims, but we didn't have necessarily a breakout program for that. So I had a lot of vision and a lot of hope for that program. So one of the things that I did was spent lots and lots and lots of hours creating curriculum for the junior high and high schools and our local junior high and high schools. and was blessed enough to actually go in and speak to multiple classes for a year. And then they decided not to re-up the grant that allowed me to do that. So that was a huge disappointment for me, because I really felt like if you're catching people at a young age and you're educating at that young age, I was already seeing victims in the classroom. I mean, you could see it on their face, you could pick it out. I had opportunities to talk to students, and so it really was just a really neat opportunity. And then the shattered to stained glass. So what I wanted residents to see is that they had gifts and talents. And so what I did was I created an art program where we would sit and do support group, but we would do that with art projects. So we would do collages, we would do paintings, we would do drawings, we did all kinds of art projects, just poetry. I wanted them to have something that they felt like was a gift and a talent for them. And even the ones who are like, oh, I can't do art, I don't know how, made things that were amazing. And so that project I took into the public, and I asked several local businesses. I think at one time we had 8 businesses, including the courthouse, where we displayed all of their art so that everyone could see, and we had educational information there, and just gave them an opportunity to show off how wonderful they were.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's incredible. I mean, you haven't just kind of like sauntered into this job and just put your nose to the grindstone at the desk. You're talking about some really awesome programs you've done.
Thank you.
So one other thing that came out of that as well, when Sunny was doing the curriculum with the schools, we were talking about reaching out to kids, and we realized that kids don't talk on the phone, that kind of thing. And so we talked about creating a text line. And so Sunny was also instrumental in creating our first 24-hour crisis text line in the state. So that's kind of her claim to fame, is that she had the ability to get that started. And so we thought, we're going to get a lot more contact from teenagers because they don't talk on the phone. But believe it or not, and Rebecca, you and I have talked about this before, we have just as many adult women reaching out for help, or more than the teenagers, because you can text on your cell phone even if you don't have minutes to make a phone call. You can also text if you're sitting right next to your abuser. And so she was able to create that text line. She's still the only sole operator of that text line. And other programs have reached out looking for technical assistance on how do you make that happen.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah, I love the text line. It's such a neat thing, like Becky said, just because that it gives people one more opportunity to reach out for services. It gives them one more outlet to reach out for our services. So it's pretty amazing.
Are you surprised at what comes across the text line?
I am, and I'm not just surprised, but I'm oftentimes a little nervous, for lack of a better term, because when you're speaking on the phone with someone, you can speak empathy and sympathy with someone over the phone. When you're texting, it can often get misstrued, or you're hoping someone's not going to read into it wrong. And so there is a little bit different environment, atmosphere with taking on the text line. But I think overall it's been a positive experience. And sometimes I have text all night long, and sometimes I don't have text for several days. But if you can just give that person one more way to reach out, it's all worth it.
Wow. And you're the only one who deals with that? Wow. That's rich.
That's a commitment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I don't know that I would be up for that kind of commitment. I'm just being honest.
The good thing is when you're on call with the on-call phone, you have to try to answer the phone in a not sleepy voice. And with the text line, at least you can still be half asleep or sleepy and be able to still text on that text line. So that's good.
That's one way to wake up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a personal, very funny story about that, but I won't tell that right now.
All right,
Okay.
Shelly, it's your turn. What keeps you coming back?
Well, I think I agree with what Sunny said about how we are as a family, we support each other, and it's a very uplifting environment and a good place if you do need to process your own stuff that you're going through. Good supportive people that you know are going to love you and support you no matter what. And so that is wonderful. It's a wonderful atmosphere to be in. And but also I really love working with, especially when they come in and maybe they see their cottage for the first time and they're just like, you just see the relief and they're just so grateful and just so happy. And then I really enjoy seeing the process of them, especially when I was the DV advocate, seeing the process of when they first came in compared to towards the end of their stay and how they're more comfortable with themselves and they're rediscovering themselves and remembering what they like or discovering what they like for the first time. And that's just so amazing to be part of that journey and having them be excited to share that they got a job or that something's going well, but also being able to be there when they're having a hard time and they can just let you know and share that with you, and you can be there to empathize with them, help them know it's going to be okay, and just kind of help, just being a helper. I really enjoy that. So that's mainly what I love about my
You
job.
never know what you're gonna get, do you?
You never do. Like it was funny, one Saturday morning I happened to be working and I had 3 different residents come in and they just had major crisis. Like they just unloaded all, like something had happened, I think at a Thursday night group, and they'd kind of been holding it in on Friday. And then a Saturday morning, they all decided to let it out because they just kind of took them that long to process it. And I was the only one there. So it was like one right after another, and it was like major stuff, and they were just so upset. And then they actually all started talking outside about how what they had just done, you know. And so they came to check on me to make sure I was okay. Like, we just dumped on you and we just want to make sure you're okay. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm glad to be here to help you get this out of, you know, to understand it or just get it out of yourself, you know. So I actually loved that because I'm like, yes, I'm here to help, and I'm glad when I'm able to do it. And it can sometimes be a lot, but I've taught myself some pretty good boundaries so that I don't take it home with me. I mean, sometimes it's a really tough situation and you just kind of have to talk it out, usually with coworkers, because you can't talk about it with somebody at home because of confidentiality. But
Right.
it's really nice to be able to talk to a coworker and be like, this heavy thing just happened, you know, I just kind of need to talk it out. And so it's a great environment for that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, how could you work there and hear all those stories and this, that, and the other? And it's like, well, I'm helping someone get better that's a victim that's been traumatized. You know, if not me, then who? You know, what if everybody had that mentality of, oh, I don't want to deal with that, that's something hard, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm glad that I do have the capacity to help.
How do you learn how to process a day like that? Days like that are taxing. How do you learn how to process that?
That it was actually therapeutic to have the residents come and check on me,
Mhm.
and then to actually say, how do you do it? And we're so grateful for you that you can listen to us when we're having a hard time. That actually was very therapeutic for me personally, because they saw me as a person who was helping them, and not that I need that, but in that instance it was helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of the work that we do. My classic statement is we're just people helping people.
Mhm.
And so knowing that that's all we are, we're no different than going next door and having a cup of coffee with your neighbor and talking about this thing. I mean, other than the fact that we're highly trained in the work that we do, but I'm just saying we're people helping people. And so sometimes we have emotions that arise. Sometimes we get angry, or sometimes we get sad, or whatever else. And so learning how to process through those feelings, I think, is one of the greatest challenges a person has when they come and work in an environment that we work in. I think you hit on it, Rebecca, when you mentioned education. I think we do learn some of those kind of things in our college classes or whatever else, how to process those. But to echo with what Sunny said as well, I think a lot of it is just the experience. Like, we start working with each other and then we support each other.
Mhm.
That's how we learn how to set those boundaries, or whatever else. We've had some funny stories of people that have taken things home and they translate into strange dreams, which is always fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, can we leave that as a teaser? Because it's time for us to call it off for this episode, and we'll pick it up on the next episode with that. I would love to hear that story.
Well, I've never had, oh, actually, I have had one dream that's funny, but we've all had them.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear this when we come
Okay.
back. So, Becky, did you ever teach your staff the hand signal for help?
I have, actually. We were
You
just
did?
talking about it at the lunch table last week.
Very good.
Thank
So who would you like to volunteer to teach that tonight?
Well, Sunny nodded her head, so what's the hand signal, Sunny?
You take your hand and you tuck your thumb in, and then you take your fingers and you put them down over the thumb, and then you bring it back up, and then you do it again. And you can keep doing that as long as you need to signal for help.
Mhm. I love it. Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, folks, no matter where you are in this process, we want to encourage you that if you go to a shelter and you need to go, that you're going to have people like this that are going to be there to help you so that you can go in and open up to them, talk to them. We wanted to make sure that we put a spotlight on this wonderful staff that Becky has and what they do. It's tough. I watched them many times, even after I got out of the shelter, and would go back in there, and it's a wonderful atmosphere. Well, folks, remember that no matter where you are in this process, you are always free to soar.